Another challenger has joined the race for the U.S. Senate. State Senator Gutierrez of San Antonio announced he is running for the Democratic nomination to challenge Senator Ted Cruz. Speaking on East Texas Now, State Senator Gutierrez said government should address the immigration system, but that alone does not fix the state's myriad of problems.
Have to get back to doing what government should do rather than just, provoke and scare us that the boogeyman is coming. I get that he wants to talk about immigration every day, and certainly we need to have that discussion, that conversation, and fix a broken immigration system on all fronts, no doubt. But that's not the reason. Some immigrant looking for a dream is not the reason we have poor education outcomes in Texas, poor healthcare outcomes in Texas, poor infrastructure problems.
Gutierrez will face off against U.S. Representative Colin Allred of Dallas for the Democratic nomination.